Rome appeared through the train window like a city built from dreams and history. The Colosseum rising among modern buildings, ancient aqueducts carrying water alongside highways, church domes dotting the skyline like sentinels of faith. Everything about Rome felt eternal, as if the city itself had transcended time and would exist forever regardless of what happened to the rest of the world. Mariana pressed her face to the window, trying to take it all in. "It's bigger than I imagined," she said. "The photos don't capture the scale." "Nothing about Rome fits in a photograph," I said. "You have to experience it." We'd been traveling for weeks now. Paris, Mont Saint-Michel, Nice, Venice, Florence, and each city had taught us something, shown us something about ourselves and each other. But Rome felt different. Rome felt like the culmination, the place where everything we'd been building would either solidify into something lasting or reveal itself to have been temporary all along. I didn't say that to Mariana, but I felt it. Our hotel was in a narrow street near the Pantheon, a small family-run place with rooms that were simple but clean and a rooftop terrace with views across the orange-tiled roofs of the historic center. Our room had a balcony barely big enough for two people to stand on, but from it we could see the dome of the Pantheon itself, ancient and perfect. "This is incredible," Mariana said, stepping onto the balcony. "Peter, we're in Rome. Actually, in Rome." I joined her, wrapping my arms around her from behind. "We are. What do you want to see first?" "Everything. All of it. But maybe tonight, just the Trevi Fountain? I've always dreamed of seeing it at night." The Trevi Fountain at night is one of Rome's most magical experiences. The Baroque masterpiece is dramatically lit, making the white marble glow against the dark sky. Water cascades over mythological figures and horses, the sound echoing off the buildings that crowd close around the small piazza. And it's always packed, locals and tourists alike drawn to the beauty and the tradition of throwing coins to ensure your return to Rome. We arrived around 9, navigating the narrow streets that twisted and turned until suddenly opening onto the fountain itself. The sight took my breath away. I'd seen photos, of course, but nothing prepared you for the actual scale and artistry of it. Mariana gasped beside me. "It's beautiful. It's so much more beautiful than I imagined." We worked our way through the crowd to get closer to the fountain's edge. The tradition is to throw a coin over your left shoulder with your right hand. 1 coin means you'll return to Rome. 2 coins means you'll fall in love with a Roman. 3 coins means you'll marry them. "How many coins are you throwing?" Mariana asked with a mischievous smile. "Just 1. I want to come back, but I've already fallen in love with a Brazilian, not a Roman." She kissed me quickly. "Good answer." I pulled out a euro coin and turned my back to the fountain. "What should I wish for?" "That's between you and the fountain," Mariana said. "But make it good." I closed my eyes, made my wish, that all of this, would last beyond this trip, beyond the romance of traveling together, into real life, and tossed the coin over my shoulder. I heard the soft splash as it hit the water. When I turned around, Mariana had disappeared. "Mariana!" I called out, scanning the crowd. She'd been right next to me a second ago. I pushed through the tourists, looking for her dark hair, her distinctive way of standing. Nothing. I circled the fountain twice, starting to feel genuinely worried. Finally, I spotted her emerging from a narrow street on the far side of the piazza. She was smiling, but there was something off about it. Something nervous, forced. "Where did you go?" I asked when she reached me. "You vanished." "Sorry, I needed to use the restroom. There's a cafe just down that street." "You could have told me." "I didn't want to interrupt your wish. Did you make a good one?" "I think so. Time will tell." We stayed at the fountain for another hour, just sitting on the edge of the piazza, watching people throw their coins and take their photos and marvel at the Baroque excess of the fountain. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in Mariana. She was quieter than usual, more distant. When I asked if she was okay, she said she was fine, just tired from the trip. The next day, we explored Rome like eager students trying to absorb 4,000 years of history in a few hours. The Colosseum was as impressive as promised, massive, ancient, haunted by the ghosts of gladiators and lions. The Forum stretched out beside it, columns and temples and the remains of the civic heart of the Roman Empire. We climbed the Palatine Hill and looked out over the city, imagining what it must have been like when emperors walked these paths. Mariana took hundreds of photos and filled several pages of her sketchbook. I watched her work, marveling at how she could capture not just the visual details but the feeling of a place, the weight of history, the beauty of decay, the persistence of human creativity. "You really should do something with these," I said, looking at her sketch of the Colosseum. "Publish a book, have an exhibition. These are too good to just stay in notebooks." She looked pleased but also uncertain. "Maybe someday. Right now they're just for me. And for you, I guess, since you're seeing them." "I'm honored." We were exploring the area around the Colosseum, trying to decide where to have lunch, when my phone rang. It was our hotel. "Senior Matthews? This is the front desk. A letter was delivered for you this morning. Would you like us to hold it, or should we leave it in your room?" "A letter? From who?" "There is no return address. Just your name on the envelope." I looked at Mariana, who was studying a map and not paying attention to my conversation. "I'll pick it up shortly. Thank you." "Who was that?" Mariana asked when I hung up. "The hotel. Someone left something for me. Probably just some tourism brochure or something. Do you want to go back and check?" "After lunch. I'm starving." But I was curious. Who would leave me a letter at the hotel? We'd only just arrived in Rome. We didn't know anyone here. After lunch at a trattoria that served the best carbonara I'd ever tasted, we walked back toward our hotel. The afternoon was warm, the streets crowded with tourists and locals alike, scooters weaving through traffic with aggressive confidence. At the hotel, the receptionist handed me a cream-colored envelope with my name, written in elegant handwriting I recognized immediately. Mariana's. I looked at her, confused. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Mariana, did you? Just read it," she said softly. "Please, but read it alone. I'll wait in the room." She walked upstairs, leaving me standing in the lobby holding the envelope. I found a small cafe around the corner and ordered an espresso I didn't really want. Then I opened the envelope carefully, as if it might contain something explosive. Inside was several sheets of paper covered in Mariana's handwriting. Not her usual quick scrawl, but careful, deliberate script. A letter written with intention. I started reading. "My dearest Peter, I'm writing this because there are things I need to say that I can't seem to say out loud. Things I've been carrying with me. Fears I've been hiding behind smiles and kisses and the easy intimacy we've built. Last night at the Trevi Fountain, while you threw your coin and made your wish, I walked away because I needed a moment. I needed to catch my breath and organize my thoughts and figure out how to tell you what I'm about to tell you now. I'm terrified, Peter. Absolutely terrified. These past weeks with you have been the happiest of my life. Every morning I wake up next to you and can't quite believe this is real. That you're real. That someone like you, smart, kind, curious, adventurous, patient with my moods and my strange obsessions, wants to be with someone like me. But the thing about being this happy is that it makes you aware of how much you have to lose. And I'm starting to realize just how much I would lose if this ended. If you decided I wasn't what you wanted. If we got back to real life and discovered that what we have only works in the bubble of travel, away from jobs and responsibilities and the mundane reality of everyday existence. I'm terrified that this is too good to be true. That I'm going to wake up one day and you'll realize you've made a mistake. That you'll look at me and see just a girl who quit her job on impulse and followed a man she barely knew across Europe. That you'll see someone unstable, unreliable, not worth the risk. I'm terrified of going back to Brazil. My visa expires in 3 weeks, Peter. 3 weeks and then I have to go home. And I keep imagining getting on that plane to Sao Paulo and realizing that everything we had was just a beautiful dream. That you'll say you'll visit, that will make it work long distance, but life will get in the way. You'll get busy, I'll get busy, the messages will become less frequent, and eventually we'll just fade away from each other. I'm terrified that I've fallen in love with you, really, truly in love, and that it won't be enough. Because love isn't always enough, is it? Sometimes people love each other but can't make it work. Sometimes circumstances pull people apart despite their feelings. Sometimes what works in theory falls apart in practice. But here's the thing, Peter. Here's what I realized last night standing by that fountain while you made your wish. Even with all these fears, even knowing I might get hurt, even understanding that we might not work out, I still choose you. Every single day, I choose you. I choose you when I wake up and the first thing I want is to see your face. I choose you when you're being ridiculous and making bad jokes that only I find funny. I choose you when you're obsessing over mysteries and following whispers in walls. I choose you when I'm scared and when I'm happy and when I'm somewhere in between. Fear means something matters. And you matter to me more than anything has mattered in a very long time. Maybe ever. So yes, I'm terrified. But I'm more terrified of the alternative, of playing it safe, of holding back, of leaving Rome with regrets about things I didn't say or risks I didn't take. I don't know what happens after these 3 weeks. I don't know if I go back to Brazil or if we figure out some way for me to stay in Europe longer. I don't know if you eventually come to Sao Paulo or if I eventually come back here. I don't know if we're building something that lasts or something beautiful but temporary. What I do know is that right now, in this moment, I want to be with you. And I want you to know, really know, that I'm all in. Not cautiously, not with one foot out the door, but completely. I'm yours, Peter, if you'll have me, with all my fears and insecurities and complicated visa situations. With my impulsive decisions and my habit of drawing instead of taking photos and my terrible sense of direction. With everything I am and everything I'm trying to become. This letter asks nothing of you except honesty. If you have doubts, tell me. If you're scared too, tell me. If this feels like too much too fast, tell me that too. I'd rather know the truth than live in comfortable illusions. Meet me at the Colosseum this evening, 6 o'clock, at the entrance on the Via dei Fori Imperiali side. If you come, I'll know your answer. If you don't, well, I'll know that too. I love you. I should have said it out loud 100 times by now, but I kept chickening out. So I'm saying it here in writing where I can't take it back or qualify it or make it smaller than it is. I love you, Peter Matthews from Chicago. I love who you are and who you're becoming. I love traveling with you and waking up next to you and discovering the world through your eyes. Whatever you decide, thank you for these weeks. They've been the best of my life. Always yours, Mariana. I sat in that cafe for a long time, reading the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face that I didn't bother to wipe away. The elderly Italian couple at the next table looked at me with concern and sympathy, probably thinking I'd just been broken up with rather than having just received the most beautiful love letter anyone had ever written. Everything Mariana wrote resonated with me because I felt it too. The fear, the uncertainty, the awareness of how much there was to lose. I'd been carrying the same worries, just hadn't found the courage to voice them. Her visa expired in 3 weeks. I hadn't let myself think about that, hadn't wanted to face the reality that this couldn't go on indefinitely. She'd have to go back to Brazil or find some way to extend her stay in Europe. And what? I'd left Chicago with no plans to return, but I couldn't travel forever. Eventually, I'd need to settle somewhere, figure out what came next. Could I go to Brazil? Could she stay in Europe? Could we make long-distance work if neither of those options panned out? I didn't have answers, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I wasn't ready to lose her. Not now, not in 3 weeks, not ever if I could help it. I also knew I loved her. I'd known it for a while but hadn't said it, partly out of fear and partly because I wanted to be sure. But reading her letter, seeing her vulnerability laid out so honestly, I realized that waiting for certainty was just another form of cowardice. Life doesn't offer certainty. All it offers is moments, chances to be brave, to be honest, to choose connection over safety. And I chose Mariana. I paid for my espresso and walked out into the Roman afternoon. I had hours before 6 o'clock, hours to figure out what I wanted to say, how I wanted to say it. I walked through Rome without any destination, letting my feet carry me past the Pantheon, through Piazza Navona with its Baroque fountains, along the Tiber River, across bridges that had stood for millennia. The city felt alive around me. Scooters and cars honking, people arguing and laughing, the smell of coffee and pizza and centuries of history. Rome, the eternal city, the city that had survived everything, emperors and popes and invasions and plagues and revolutions, and remained. What made something eternal? Not the absence of change or challenge, but the commitment to persisting despite them. That's what Mariana was asking for, I realized. Not a promise that we'd never face difficulties or doubts, just a commitment to persist, to keep choosing each other even when it got hard. Could I promise that? Could I commit to figuring out the visa situation, the distance, the logistics of building a life together when we'd only known each other for a few weeks? The logical part of my brain said this was crazy. You don't make life-changing decisions based on a few weeks of travel romance. You don't rearrange your entire existence for someone you've known less than 2 months. But the truth was, I'd already made life-changing decisions based on less. I'd left Chicago with no plan and no destination. I'd walked away from my career and my apartment and my entire life because it felt wrong. I trusted my instincts then, and my instincts now were screaming that Mariana was worth any amount of risk, any amount of uncertainty, any amount of difficulty. At 5:30, I made my way toward the Colosseum. The afternoon was turning to evening, the light taking on that golden quality that makes Rome even more beautiful. Street vendors were packing up, tourists were heading back to hotels to rest before dinner. The city was catching its breath between day and night. The Colosseum rose before me, massive and ancient and somehow still standing after 2,000 years. Wars and earthquakes and time itself hadn't destroyed it, persisted. I found Mariana exactly where she'd said she'd be, standing near the entrance on the Via dei Fori Imperiali side. She was wearing a simple white dress I hadn't seen before, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, and she looked beautiful and nervous and heartbreakingly vulnerable. When she saw me approaching, her expression shifted through several emotions: relief, fear, hope, uncertainty. I walked straight to her, took her face in both my hands, and kissed her. Long, deep, trying to convey everything I was feeling through that contact. When we finally broke apart, I rested my forehead against hers. "I love you too," I said. "I've been too scared to say it, but I do. I love you, Mariana Costa from Sao Paulo. I love your courage and your art and the way you see beauty in everything. I love traveling with you and waking up next to you and discovering who I am through your eyes." Tears were streaming down her face now. "You read my letter. I read your letter 3 times. And you're right, I'm terrified too. Terrified of not being enough, of disappointing you, of this not working once we're back in real life. But I'm more terrified of not trying, of letting you go because I was too afraid to take a risk." "What about my visa?" she asked, voicing the practical concern neither of us wanted to face. "What about the fact that in 3 weeks I have to leave Europe?" "I don't know," I admitted, "but we'll figure it out. Maybe you can apply for an extension. Maybe I come to Brazil with you for a while. Maybe we do long distance until we figure out something permanent. I don't have all the answers, Mariana. I just know I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose you either. Then we won't let that happen. We'll be creative. We'll find a way. People make international relationships work all the time." She laughed through her tears. "Is that what this is? An international relationship? It's whatever we want it to be. But yeah, I guess technically it is. American guy, Brazilian girl, falling in love while traveling through Europe. We're a walking cliché. The best kind of cliché." I pulled her close and just held her, both of us crying a little, both of us relieved and scared and hopeful all at once. Around us, Rome went about its business. Tourists taking photos of the Colosseum, couples holding hands, street musicians playing for euros. The eternal city, witnessing one more love story among the countless millions it had seen. "Can I tell you what I wished for at the Trevi Fountain?" I asked after a while. "I thought those were supposed to be secret. I'm willing to risk it. I wished that this us would last beyond this trip, that what we have would survive real life." "That's what I wished for too," she said. "That's why I disappeared. I threw my own coin, made my own wish. And then I got scared because I realized how much I wanted it to come true. So we both wished for the same thing. That has to count for something. In Rome, it counts for everything." We walked through the Forum as the sun set, holding hands, not talking much, just being together in the presence of history. The ancient temples and basilicas glowed in the golden light, and I thought about all the people who'd walked these paths before us. Senators and slaves, emperors and exiles, lovers and enemies. All of them gone now, their concerns and fears and joys dissolved into time. But while they'd lived, their feelings had been real. Their love had mattered. And maybe that was the point. Not to last forever, but to matter while you're here. To love fully even knowing it might end. To choose connection despite the risk. "I have a confession," Mariana said as we sat on a low wall, watching the last light fade from the Roman sky. "What's that?" "I've been keeping track. It's been exactly 7 weeks since we met in Porto. 7 weeks since I saw you in that cafe and just knew, that you were gonna matter. That's not very long objectively. People date for years before saying I love you, before making commitments. 7 weeks is nothing. It's everything," I corrected. 7 weeks of being together almost constantly. 7 weeks of learning each other, of facing challenges together, of building something. That's worth more than years of casual dating. "Do you really think so? Or are you just saying that to make me feel better?" "I really think so. Time isn't just about duration, it's about intensity, about depth, about what you do with it. We've lived more in 7 weeks than most couples live in years." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Thank you for meeting me here. For reading my letter and not running away scared. Thank you for being brave enough to write it. For being honest about your fears instead of pretending everything was perfect. Nothing is perfect, but this is pretty close." We stayed there until full dark, until the Colosseum was lit up against the night sky and the street lights came on and the city transformed into its nocturnal version. Finally, we made our way back toward our hotel, taking the long route through Piazza Venezia and past the Victor Emmanuel Monument, lit up like a wedding cake. "Peter," Mariana said as we walked. "Yeah, whatever happens with the visa, whatever logistics we have to figure out, I want you to know that I'm committed to making this work. Really committed. I'm not going to give up just because it gets complicated. Neither am I. We'll figure it out together." "Together?" she repeated, like a promise. That night, lying in bed with Mariana curled against me, I thought about the letter she'd written, about her courage in being so vulnerable, so honest about her fears, about how love requires that kind of bravery, the willingness to risk being hurt, to expose your soft places, to admit how much someone else matters. I spent so much of my life playing it safe. Safe career even though it made me miserable. Safe relationship with Rachel that checked all the boxes but didn't touch my heart. Safe life that looked good from the outside but felt empty inside. Leaving Chicago had been the first really brave thing I'd done. And everything that had followed. The journey through Europe, the mysteries I'd uncovered, the discoveries I'd made, had been teaching me how to be brave, how to trust my instincts, how to follow my heart even when it didn't make logical sense. Falling in love with Mariana was the bravest thing yet, because with her, I had everything to lose. With her, I was investing my whole heart, taking the biggest risk I'd ever taken. But as I held her while she slept, feeling her breath against my chest, I knew it was worth it. Whatever challenges we'd face with visas and distance and building a life together, it would all be worth it for this. For her. For us. Rome had witnessed our promises. Not promises of perfection or certainty or an easy path forward, but promises to try, to persist, to keep choosing each other even when it got hard. The Eternal City had seen countless love stories over its thousands of years. Some had ended in tragedy, some in triumph, some somewhere in between. But all of them had mattered while they lasted. All of them had been real, and ours was real too. Complicated and uncertain and terrifying and absolutely, undeniably real. I kissed the top of Mariana's head and whispered, "I love you, today and tomorrow and as many days as we get." She stirred slightly, not quite waking, and murmured something that sounded like, "Love you too." And in that moment, in a small hotel room in Rome with the woman I loved sleeping in my arms, I felt something I'd been searching for since leaving Chicago: peace. Not the absence of questions or challenges, but the deep certainty that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The journey wasn't over. We still had to figure out the visa situation, still had to navigate the transition from travel romance to real life, still had 1,000 decisions to make and obstacles to overcome. But we'd face them together. And that made all the difference.